Okay, so you should have your work for this practice in front of you and be correcting it with a red pen. Correct work with a red pen. If you don't have a red pen, then I'll take pink, purple, orange, green, anything like that. It needs to be different than what you did your work in originally. Okay, so we have to simplify the square root of 125 over the square root of 5. So let's take care of the top first here. We can factor 125 into 5 times 5 times 5. And we have a pair of 5s here. So we could take a 5 out and leave the 5 in. Let me double check that. 125 divided by 5. Yeah. And then on bottom, I have the square root of 5. And you could try to rationalize it, or you could see that square root of 5 over square root of 5, these two, is the same thing. You divide something by itself, it cancels out. And so we just get 5 for this answer. Okay, on number 2, we have the square root of negative 8. So since that 8 is negative, there's a negative 1 there, times 8. And you should know that the square root of negative 1 becomes I, so our final answer will have an I in front of it. And then we can break down the 8 into 2 times 2 times 2. So the 8 became 2 times 2 times 2. I have a pair of 2's here, so I can take out a 2. So I have 2I with a 1, 2 left over. That's our answer. 2I radical 2. Number 3, solve each by taking square roots and then simplify your answer completely. On number 3, our x squared is already by itself, so we can just take the square root and we get x equals plus or minus. Now we need to simplify this. The square root of negative 50, we can break that up into negative 1 times 50. And the square root of negative 1 is I, so we can bring that down. And now we need to break up the 50. 50 is 2 times 25, so that's 2 times 5 times 5. You can make the factor tree if you want. So we have a pair of 5, so a 5 will come out, the 2 will stay home. So our final answer is x equals plus or minus 5I radical 2. Number 4, okay? So we're trying to solve for n. We're going to add the 3 first and get 7n squared equals 28. Divide by 7. N squared equals 4. We're going to take the square root to cancel out the square, and we get n equals plus or minus square root of 4 is 2. Number 5. Solving for x, so we're going to add the 8 first. We get 9x squared equals 288. We're going to divide by 9 to cancel it out. Okay, and we get x squared equals 32 because these two divide out evenly. I'm going to take the square root to cancel out the square, and we're going to end up with x equals plus or minus something, but we need to simplify the square root of 32 first. So 32 breaks into 2 times 16, and then 16 is 4 times 4, and then 2 times 2, 2 times 2. So we have the square root of a bunch of 2's. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. 5, actually. And so we have 2 pairs of 2's. So for each pair, that's 1 2 that comes out. So I have 2 times 2. And this one stays home. So we end up with 4 radical 2. So our answer is plus or minus 4 radical 2. Okay, number 6. Solving for n squared, solving for n, subtract the 8. We get 2n squared equals negative 11. Divide by 2. N squared equals negative 11 over 2. We need to take the square root. So we're going to have n equals plus or minus something. So let's take a look. So we take the square root at the top and the bottom separately. So that's a negative 11. So the square root of negative 11 becomes negative 1 times 11 because it's negative. And the negative 1 is our I. 11 is prime, so there's no need to break it up. And we carry over our square root of 2. Now, here's the next problem. We are not allowed to have radicals in the denominator, so we need to rationalize our denominator. So we'll multiply the top and the bottom by the square root of 2. So that gives us I radical 22 over 2. Again, because square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is the square root of 4, and then the square root of 4 is 2. So our answer is I radical 22 over 2. Okay, make sure you make those corrections and use a red pen or something equivalent that's different from what you did the work in.